welcome back to another video. So this week I just thought I'd do a little bit of video on my 2013 Gen 1 Ducati Diavel Dark model. As you can tell, it's all blacked out. So I thought I'd just go through this. I've got quite a few videos on the channel of me riding this, so I just thought on this one I'd show you around the bike and just talk about some of the good things I found with it and some of the bad things. This being the Gen 1 model, 2013, it's done 30,000, just over 30,000 Ks. It's got the full Termi exhaust system, which I believe new were like pretty expensive, 3.5 grand, something like that. So it was really good bonus to get that on the bike when I bought it. It's got the exhaust valve flapper that's been deleted, that's gone. And then because you delete that so it doesn't throw the code, you have a Termi map. The Termi map's been put on it, and it's also got a K&N air filter as well. So stock, these are 162 brake horsepower. This with the full system and the map and the K&N, probably high 60s, maybe 168, something like that. I've not had it dynoed, so like I say, I can't give any real world figures on what it puts out at the back wheel or at the crank. I've not had it dynoed. One of the things on the wish list is a quick shifter and the tune buoy. So a lot of people use the tune buoys to get rid of the roughness at the bottom end, and I think you can get a tune buoy with, so then you can upload your own maps on it and it's easy for the tuners to tune, and you get cruise control, you get launch control as well, and then you've got to buy the quick shifter separate, but that comes with the up and down shifter, and it has an auto blip function on the downshift. I think they're like 900 Aussie dollars, and then I think for about 600 Aussie dollars you can get the Hailtech quick shifter, which I think is just an up shifter. So definitely would like to put something like that on it. I think a quick shifter on this would transform the bike, because the gearbox it's not the nicest. It's pretty agricultural, pretty notchy. You do get a few random false neutrals. So basically, good things about this Ducati Diavel. One is the looks. I think it looks absolutely badass. Everything on it is top quality, as you'd expect. Italian design engineering, it's just absolutely beautiful. All the nuts and bolts and fasteners are just top quality. So I love that about it. The comfort, this low seat. I'll show you, it's pretty low. I'm like just 6 foot, and this, you can see, even sitting down, it's a really low seat, which is pretty good if you're a bit short-legged, I'd say. It'd be perfect for, I wouldn't say perfect for beginners, because yeah, it's got some grunt, but definitely with the low seat and the mid controls and the high bars, it's really comfortable. Buffeted about a bit in the wind on the freeway, but that's nothing you can't live with, you know. So looks, comfort, the engine. I think the engine is, obviously of any bike, the engine's the heart of the motorcycle, and with this thing it's an absolute beast. It's 1198cc, basically derived from one of the superbikes, the Panigales, I believe, and then they basically detuned it. They changed the valve overlap from 24 degrees to 11 degrees, which is what this one is. The later models from 2015, I believe, have got twin spark and variable cam timing, which helps that bottom end, because this is a bit below 4,000 RPM. Yeah, around 3,000 to 4,000 RPM below there. Doesn't like being lugged at the bottom end. It's a big twin, so obviously, you know, that's just characteristic of it, but it's got a heap of soul. The bike's just, it feels alive. It's not what's the word, it's not very clinical. It's not like your Hondas and your Kawasaki's where they're at that level and they just stay there. This thing seems to have a mind of its own, but having said that, it's still reliable, you know, and obviously as long as you look after them. Yeah, the mid-range on this. So from like, you go from, I went from a ZX-10R, and I've had V-rods before, I went to this thing, and I thought this was the fastest bike I'd ridden. It's not the bike with the most power that I've ever ridden, but just that mid-range, the only way I can describe it is, it's like a theme park roller coaster. It's just instant, it just launches, especially when you put it in sport mode. The rider modes, you've got urban, which is 100 horsepower, then you've got touring, which is 162 horsepower low, so just low throttle response and higher traction control, and then you've got your sport mode, which is 162 horsepower and high throttle response, and then a lower traction control. But the settings are all customizable, so you can add up, you've got 5 levels of traction control. You can put them on, you can reduce that and put it back up, so you can go in the settings and manually play with the modes as you see fit. The mid-range, top end is still a screamer, being a superbike engine, but the mid-range is just unbelievable. It's like I say, it's like a theme park roller coaster. It just catapults you, almost like what you would imagine an electric bike to be like. Just instant torque, and just goes, and that's this thing. I've ridden S1000s and stuff like that, and yeah, they've got the power at the top end, but this thing, by the time they've even changed down a few gears and got the revs up, this is gone. It's just absolutely instant. Like I say, especially keep it over that 4,000 RPM, because from factory they come out pretty tall gearing on them. A lot of people do is they change the front sprocket to on the chain to like a 14 tooth, I believe, which gives it that little bit better bottom end, so it's not as grumpy. I haven't done that because I like my top end. I've had this on like a private track. This was, yeah, it was like $2.78, and it still had spare change. So yeah, I don't know what the top end would be on this, but it's more than enough, especially with no fairing. You know, you're sort of pushing your limits at that speed. That's one of the things I love about it, is the motor. I love the character, I love the sound of it. It sounds absolutely amazing, especially with these Termi pipes on it. The handling, it's got the big 240 rear tyre. It's stable, but when you tip it in, I find it's got a bit of a tipping point. So whereas on your sports bikes, you just look over your shoulder and it'll turn in. This thing, you sort of have to just give it a little bit of a nudge, and it's almost like it's on a sort of, it just tips in. It's like it's got a balance point, and it just tips in. But once you get it over, and like I say, you get used to it, but once you get this thing over, the handling is awesome. They're the good things about it. Let's talk about a few of the dislikes. Cost, it's expensive to Ducati. They're expensive to buy. I got this at a bit of a bargain pre-COVID. Nonetheless, it's still, the servicing is really expensive on them. My friend's got a Monster, and he just had his recently serviced at a Ducati dealership. And I think his was $470 for the full service. So, you know, they're not the cheapest things, but, you know, it's a Ducati, that's what you expect when you get them. Parts are expensive, and working on them can be tricky. There's a lot of Ducati special tools, which can be a pain, but you can overcome it if you do a bit of research. I went for a big ride on this. I was about 2 minutes from home, just to turn it down to my street. It just popped out of gear, tried to get it back in, and the gear shifter just flopped. What had happened is, inside the selector fork, there's 2 little springs. Well, one of them had snapped, the thicker spring. It had snapped, so the gear selector wouldn't return back to the neutral position in the middle. So when you knock it down, it normally returns, and likewise up and down. Well, this just went floppy. I managed to sort of nurse it, nudge it in and get it in gear, and managed to get it home. Because it's a big job, you have to pull the side of the engine off, take the flywheel off. There's a lot of work involved in it, water pump and all that. So I did a bit of research, watched some YouTube videos, downloaded the workshop manual, and just spent a couple of evenings going through that, having a look at it, and then started stripping it down. I basically, on the other side, I'll put some pictures up to show you. you can see this spring. I had to take the engine casing off, up a little tool for the case puller, just to pull the case off even, because you don't want to tap them because they're aluminium, and you don't want to pull them off out of square because you can twist them, because they're a machine face with no gasket. They use the sealant. You've got to pull it off nice and even. So I made one of them, I got the case off, and then I had to make a flywheel locking tool. Ducati have got one, I think it's $300 odd on eBay. I was like, not paying that. So I kind of made one. It just holds the flywheel, and there's two little dowel holes in the actual flywheel where you basically 2 pins go in. It locks the flywheel and you can get the nut off. So nuts 300 odd foot-pounds or something crazy. Because I got that off, pulled it off. Luckily, the spring that had broke hadn't gone down into the oil pan. It had sat, say this is this engine casing, it had sort of sat at the bottom there. So luckily it hadn't gone into the sump and gone through the engine. So that was lucky. The part was $4.96, so I got the 2 of them. And the guy at the servicing shop at Ducati said that they were the upgraded parts. It was a bit of a notorious thing that they go. So I got the upgraded one, and I put them side by side, and there's a slight difference, not in thickness, but looks like in the material. So I replaced both of the springs while it was off. You have to sort of mess around resetting the gear position, which isn't as bad as it sounds. There is a Ducati again, I've got a special tool for that, but I just set it as per what the manual showed and what I'd seen on videos, and that was perfect. All worked well. Sealant from Super Cheap. It was the Permatex Ultra Grey, which is basically exactly the same colour as what Ducati use, only the Ducati one was a small one for about $40 and they had a weak weight on it. So yeah, that's the only thing that's broke on it, the return spring, and now that's fixed. It's perfect. Say the tune boy, I'd like to get that done. It needs the cam belts doing. I do want it, the service coming up in 3,000 Ks. I've changed the oil twice on it, because when I did the return spring, I had to drain the coolant, and I also had to do the oil. And I resealed the water pump because that had a slight whip on it. So I resealed that, and everything's been absolutely awesome since. So what I'm thinking, I might do a bit of a service video on this. I'll replace the timing belts. I'll check the valves. A lot of people said these probably, at the Ks it's got, probably shouldn't be out to spec, but I'll take them all down, I'll measure them, and then if I do need to change any of the shim buckets, I'll order what I need from Ducati. Either that, or maybe they'll swap me for mine for one of theirs. So like I say, oil, air filters all done. I cleaned and re-oiled that not so long ago. So then I'll probably do the spark plugs, check the valves, the timing belts, brake pads, and the tyres. That leads me to one of the other dislikes with them. Your tyre choice is really limited. You pretty much got Michelin and Pirelli. Michelin, if you can get them, the Sport RSs, I believe, can't get them over here. I can't get any of the Michelin ones over here. So all I'm pretty much stuck with is the Pirelli. There's Rosso 2, which is what these two are, and there's Rosso 3s. I don't know if the Rosso 3s are any better or not, as in terms of wear, but these, when I got this, the tyres weren't too bad. They were pretty good, and like I say, I've done 3,000 Ks on this, and the tyres absolutely shot. It is absolutely done. Same on the front. The wear on them, like say 2,000-3,000 Ks, depending how you ride, pretty piss poor. And I think for the set, I found them on eBay for $600. So that's a bit of a bugbear. The big tyre, limited on tyre choice, and that's a bit annoying. And they're not cheap, and they wear out really quick. So bear that in mind if you're looking at one. Also, the single-sided swing arm's got the eccentric hub, and then there's 2 pinch bolts on the back of the swing arm. You undo them, and there's a tool. It's like what you would adjust the preload on your suspension, and you turn this sprocket at the back here, and it adjusts your chain. There's a little aperture in the swing arm, and I think it's between 9 and 11 mil. You get the center of the rivet on the chain, get that in line. Now, I'm forever adjusting the chain on this, because soon after 2 or 3 rides, it seems to go out of spec. And then the chain, because it's an aluminium swing arm, the chain will clatter at hit the bottom of the swing arm. It's a pain in the arse. It'll hit the bottom of the swing arm and make like a clanging noise. People have put like rubber strips underneath them to stop it, but to be honest, I just use it as a bit of a reference to just, oh, okay, if I notice at low revs, especially at low revs and a low gear, it'll just slap the bottom of the swing arm. Like I say, 2 or 3 rides, I'll just readjust it. So I just use it, when it starts making that sound, I'll just tighten it back up again. But I'd say that was it for the dislikes. I mean, yeah. It's expensive, but it's a Ducati. I know a lot of people have had issues with the keys. Transponder, I believe, for the key, because it's a keyless ignition, is under the seat. One thing I do need to do is when I take this to get the service light reset at Ducati, I might get the pin changed, because I didn't get the pin from the previous owner. So because it's a keyless ignition, if the battery dies or the bike won't start with the key, you can go into the menu and you can put a pin code in and start the bike that way. I haven't got that pin, so I would like to get it sorted, but like I say, when I need the light reset, I'll take it to Ducati and get the service light done, and I'll get the pin code changed to a pin code. These can get a bit wobbly, and they're on a little like a dowel into a rubber grommet with a screw, and they get, obviously that rubber just wears over time, and this being big lumpy V-twin, it shakes everything. The number plate has fell off twice on me just from vibration, so now it's got nylon lock nuts and red Loctite on it. And these, all I did to stiffen these up, because my mate was riding behind me and says, oh, your lights are wobbling. So I basically just got I got a tap washer, a new tap washer, a thick rubber. Basically put that at the back and then put the screw over it, and it just pinched them up, and they're perfect. That pretty much wraps up this little bit about the Diavel. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you took something away from it. Just a few little hints and tips. Cheers guys, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, all that goodness really helps us out, and see you on another one.